Hello and welcome to My Little Pony. Another Nightmare Night special? I don't know what to call these anymore. With Nightmare Night approaching, Princess Twilight Sparkle is helping to prepare Canterlot for the holiday. While setting up decorations around the castle, she notices something that confuses her. She was in charge of this section of the castle, but it seemed to already be decorated. Fake blood covered the walls and even some up to the ceiling. A little more extreme than she was expecting the castle to be decorated, but she didn't see anything really wrong with it. Probably just some castle guards giving her a hard time, she thought. Deciding to humor them, she heads down the hallway. Then she notices it. The smell. This wasn't a joke. Something was wrong here. Following the scent, she came across the source, or at least the most recent source. It was the corpse of a guard. Not just a little blood and a couple slashes. No, his body was lying in a pool of his own blood. It was so fresh. His blood was still running, mixing with the others and dripping into a nearby grate. But the wound wasn't what got Twilight. She was no stranger to death and destruction. No, what scared her was how this was done. He had no eyes. No face. His mouth was wide open, as if in one last attempt to scream. His jaw was completely removed, and there were cuts and gashes all along his body. Even his armor had been cut into, as if the killer didn't even want to bother with it. Twilight quickly realized she was standing in a crime scene. She tried to leave, not wanting to disturb the area. That's when she noticed it. She hadn't touched the blood, but there were hoof prints going both ways in it. Some pony else was here. And then, as if summoned by her thoughts, she heard the voice. "Well, I was not expecting you." The voice came from behind Twilight. She didn't need to turn around to know who was talking. The voice was enough, but she was frozen, not daring to move. She could hear hoofsteps coming closer, until the pony was standing right next to her. "Hello, Princess." Twilight finally found the courage to speak. "Hello, Celestia. What are you doing here?" "I think I could ask the same question," Celestia answered, gesturing at the bloody room. "I came to help decorate, but this wasn't here when I left." "Oh, so it wasn't you? Well, that's strange. I could have sworn the hoofprints came from your hooves." Twilight could see what Celestia was trying to do, but it was pointless. The Alicorn could clearly tell the difference between the hoofprints. Why was she acting like this? "Celestia, I know you can tell which prints belong to me. You're doing no good by pretending." "Very well." Celestia gave up the ruse. "I was just checking to make sure you hadn't lost it. I'm sure you've realized by now, but I am not the same pony as the one you once knew. You've seen it before, I can tell. You're Nightmare Moon, aren't you?" "Oh, Twilight, I've gone by so many names over the years. I am the monster that haunts nightmares and the demon of Equestria. But if you insist, you may call me Nightmare." "Why did you kill him?" Twilight asked, tears beginning to form. "Him? He was nothing more than a simple peasant, just like the others I've killed. You know, I was wondering when the castle was going to catch on. It's been 177 victims, not including him." "Why? Why would you kill all those innocent ponies?" "I wouldn't say they were all innocent." "You're insane." Twilight could not comprehend what had happened. If only being insane means there's a chance of being sane again. I've long since stopped caring about such trivial matters. Now, I must take my leave." Nightmare walked past Twilight and headed for the door. As she reached the exit, Twilight finally spoke. "I thought we were friends." "Friends, huh?" The former Alicorn of the Sun stopped in the doorway. "What a strange idea. Goodbye, Twilight Sparkle." Nightmare was just about to leave when something happened. She was knocked back, her body slamming into a wall. Her ears rang, and her vision blurred. As her vision began to clear, she saw what hit her. It was a guard. The pony was wielding a shotgun, which was the obvious answer to what caused her pain. The guard didn't look so great either. He had several wounds all over his body, as well as a large gash in his head. As Nightmare stood up, she noticed his legs. They were broken. She didn't think a pony could survive that much damage, but she was glad he had. A smile formed on Nightmare's face. The guard fired another round at Nightmare. She felt the impact of the shot, but it did not faze her. The pony was panicking, trying to reload his gun. "It's no use. That weapon is useless against me," Nightmare said, slowly walking toward him. As he struggled with the shotgun, Nightmare picked him up. She examined him for a few moments before grabbing his head. The pony tried to speak, but the words would not come out. And with one swift movement, she twisted his head and neck, snapping them in two. She threw his lifeless body down and looked at her new wounds. The shotgun blast had hit her stomach, and while no pellets had gone through her body, it had opened a large gash. She was bleeding a lot, but she knew she could fix this. She took a few steps forward and sat down, leaning her head against the wall. She closed her eyes and concentrated. When she opened her eyes, her wounds were healed. They were clean and no longer bloody. The only evidence that showed she was ever injured was a large hole in her cloak. Nightmare looked at the guard's corpse. She could feel her anger growing, and it would not be long before it was uncontrollable. She jumped up and lunged at the body, landing on top of it. Her claws were out, and she went straight for the throat. She slashed the flesh, cutting deep into his neck. She tore his skin off, revealing the raw meat underneath. Blood flowed freely and coated her hooves and clothes. The sound of armor clanging caught her attention. There was a group of 6 guards, all carrying their guns. Nightmare's blood-covered hoof gripped the dead guard's neck, squeezing tight. Her other hoof was raised, ready to strike. The first guard took a step toward her, raising his gun. But before he could fire, Nightmare's claws struck his chest, slicing him open. He fell to the ground, his blood mixing with the others. Another guard approached, shooting at her, but she moved faster than any pony could blink. And suddenly, she was behind the pony, and before he could react, she slashed his neck, sending a spray of blood onto the wall. She turned her attention to the others. 2 of them had already dropped their weapons and were backing away. One tried to fire, but his hooves were shaking, making him miss. Nightmare's hoof shot out and grabbed the gun, pointing it at the shooter. The shot was fired and the pony fell, a hole in his neck. One last guard was left. He was staring at the body of the one Nightmare had just shot. He was frozen, not moving, not breathing. Twilight stood there, her eyes glowing and her horn radiating magical energy. "Leave," Twilight ordered.
Don't have to tell me twice!
The guard ran away, not looking back. "I will not allow you to harm my subjects!" Twilight roared. "Well, that's unfortunate, because I intend to do much worse than that. We shall see about that!" And with that, Twilight unleashed a beam of magic. The beam was blocked by a force field. Nightmare charged, her claws ready. She sliced the air, the razor-sharp edges creating a wave of magical energy. The attack was deflected. The 2 powers collided, sending shockwaves. The fight was intense. Both sides were evenly matched. But Nightmare could not hold her form much longer. She had not used her magic for so long, she had forgotten what it felt like. Suddenly, Nightmare was blasted backwards. She crashed into the wall, a huge crater forming. She stood up and was about to attack when a second beam hit her. This time she wasn't prepared, and the force sent her flying through a window. Twilight watched her fall, a satisfied look on her face. That'll teach her. Then, Nightmare's horn began to glow again, and she threw herself into the air. "Oh no, you don't!" Twilight tried to cast another spell, but Nightmare was too quick. She flew up and aimed a punch at her enemy's face. It connected, and Twilight staggered backwards. Nightmare flew down and hit the ground with her hoof. The ground exploded, sending chunks of dirt and rock everywhere. Twilight was thrown through the air, landing hard on her back. Nightmare walked over and looked down at her. So, you think you're stronger than me? You're wrong. Maybe, but unlike you, I have friends who will come help me. They won't help you, Nightmare groaned. They'll all turn their backs on you, your precious friends. You ponies are full of nothing but despair and anguish. This vessel was a little more challenging, but all too simple to twist. No! Twilight cried and unleashed a barrage of magical blasts. Nightmare easily dodged them and grabbed the princess's neck. This is the end, Twilight Sparkle. You will die alone and forgotten. You're wrong. Twilight managed to get out. They'll save me. They will. You are a fool. Nightmare tightened her grip. Now goodbye. And with that, she squeezed. Twilight let out a strangled gasp as her airway was crushed. Then, her head exploded, blood splattering everywhere. Nightmare released her hold, letting the alicorn's body drop to the ground. This was fun, but I'm leaving. The former queen began to cast a teleportation spell, when suddenly, the eviscerated body of Princess Twilight faded into mist. An illusion, Nightmare gasped. You didn't think I was stupid enough to stay in one place, did you? The real Twilight retorted, appearing from thin air. I'm sorry, Celestia. I don't want to hurt you. But if it's the only way, I will. You're lying. The Dark Princess flared her wings. You're a liar and a coward. You can't beat me, and you know it. Maybe I can't. Maybe you'll kill me, and I'll become just another ghost. But if that's what it takes, then I'll do it. For Equestria! How touching. The disdain clear in Nightmare's eyes. Too bad I'm going to tear your head off and feed it to the crows. Twilight fired a powerful beam of magic. Nightmare easily sidestepped it and shot back. Her magical blast was deflected, but it sent the young Alicorn backwards. Twilight retaliated, launching a flurry of attacks. All of them missed, but kept the Dark Princess on her hooves. Don't underestimate me! The glow of Twilight's horn became blinding. I'll make you pay for everything! Nightmare sneered. You're weak. Pathetic. You can't stand up to me. How do you expect to save any pony? I'll keep fighting, no matter what! So will I. The two ponies clashed, their magical abilities colliding. The two continued to exchange magical blasts, neither giving an inch. But Twilight was tiring, her magic was running out, and Nightmare could tell. Give up! Just give up! Never. The young Alicorn barely catching her breath. If you don't surrender, I'll kill you. Nightmare began to slowly walk forward. If I have to die, I will. Very well. Let's finish this! Nightmare launched a huge, powerful attack. It hit the young princess, and she was sent flying backwards. Her head hit the floor, knocking her out cold. Now, the game is over. Nightmare began to approach the unconscious pony, about to finish her off, when suddenly, she felt a radiating surge of magical energy. Twilight stood up, her body glowing brightly. She looked up at her mentor and friend, her eyes shining. No, you don't get to win this! She charged at her opponent and tackled the Dark Pony. They wrestled, but Twilight managed to get on top. She pinned the Dark Princess down and held her in place. Get off me! Nightmare roared, struggling to break free. I'm stronger than you! The young pony placed her hooves on the Dark Princess's chest. What are you doing? Ending this. Twilight's hooves began to glow, and her entire body was covered in light. A bright light shone from her chest, and she was engulfed in brilliant blue flames. No! This is not possible! Nightmare thrashed wildly, but to no avail. She was completely powerless. You will die, the young Alicorn whispered, her eyes filled with sorrow. You can't kill me!
Nightmare is eternal.
You are nothing. Nothing compared to the power I've gained. I can destroy you. Please, Twilight, don't. Don't hurt me, the princess pleaded. But Twilight did not fall for this trick. I'm sorry, Celestia. A blinding light erupted, and the world went white. When the light cleared, the young Alicorn saw her former mentor. Celestia lay motionless, her eyes wide open, with no sign of the darkness that infected her. She was dead, and Equestria was saved. And this concludes another randomly generated Nightmare Night special. Until next time.
The shadows voice so soft, so sweet.